My name is Madison Parker, and I am 34 years old. 3 months ago, I flew 18 hours to attend my sister's wedding. When I reached the venue, my own parents stepped in front of the entrance and told me I needed to go. Only family is allowed inside, my mom said. You weren't invited. I stood there in the dress I had carefully chosen 2 months earlier, holding the gift I had wrapped the night before on the bed in my hotel room, and watched my mom's face give me absolutely nothing. No guilt. No hesitation. Just the emotional equivalent of a door being shut in my face. I'd signed every vendor contract for that wedding, all of them. My name was on them. My credit card was on file. I had paid the deposit months earlier and had not questioned it for a second. 3 days later, she called. Not because she was sorry. She was calling about the bill. $38,000. And the answer I gave her was the last thing she expected. Before I tell you how it all unfolded, take a second to like and subscribe, but only if this story truly pulls you in. And leave your location and local time down in the comments. I really want to know where you are listening from. So let me take you back to last November, the day my sister announced her engagement. It was a Tuesday evening in Seattle. November rain ticking softly against the window of my apartment. My phone buzzed with a video call from Avery, my younger sister, 26, just out of college, still living about 10 minutes from our parents in Briar Creek, Kentucky. I answered. Avery's face filled the screen, lit up with excitement. Behind her, I could see our mom Diane moving things around on the kitchen counter. I'm engaged, Avery squealed, thrusting her ring toward the camera. Caleb proposed last night at the vineyard. It was perfect. A real rush of happiness opened in my chest. Avery, that's incredible. Congratulations. Thanks. Caleb's family is so excited. The Bennetts already offered their barn venue. Can you believe it? I knew the Bennetts. Everybody in Briar Creek did. They owned the largest auto dealership chain in 3 counties. Caleb Bennett was the youngest son, polite, handsome, came from the kind of money everyone in town recognized. Mom, say hi to Madison, Avery said, tilting the phone. Diane leaned into frame. She smiled, but the smile stopped before it reached her eyes. Hi, honey. Exciting news, right? It really is, I said. I'll start checking flights. When is the date? A pause. Diane glanced at Avery, then back at me. Oh, don't go spending a fortune on airfare. It is just a small wedding. Mom, it is Avery's wedding. I'm coming. Well, we'll see about that. Diane straightened up. Anyway, we've got a lot of planning to do. I'll let Avery fill you in. She disappeared from the frame. Avery chatted for another 10 minutes about flowers and color palettes. I listened, smiled, and jotted down notes, but a heaviness settled low in my stomach. For the first time in 2 years, I had a real reason to go home. I should have noticed how hard my mom was already working to keep me away from it. 2 weeks later, Diane called, not Avery. Diane. On a Wednesday afternoon, which meant it was morning in Kentucky, and she'd been thinking about this since she woke up. Madison, I need to talk to you about something practical. Okay. The venue requires a credit card on file to hold the reservation. Your dad and I, well, you know our credit took a hit after the refinance. And Avery just graduated. She does not have the history. I leaned back in my office chair. I knew exactly where the conversation was heading. The caterer needs the same thing, she continued. And the florist, and the photographer. It is 4 contracts total. We just need somebody with solid credit to sign off. You would be doing your sister a huge favor. How much money are we talking about? Altogether, it comes to about $41,000, but you would only have to put down $3,500 as a deposit. The rest gets charged after the event. $41,000 in my name. Mom, that is a lot of money. It is not actually your money, Madison. It is just your name on the paperwork. We will take care of the payments afterward. I promise I will make sure everything gets handled. I had heard that promise before. When I was 22, I co-signed a car loan for my dad. It took me 3 years to untangle it from my credit report. When I was 28, I sent Diane $4,000 for a plumbing emergency that turned out to be Avery's semester tuition. But this was my sister's wedding, and I was the older sister. The one with a stable job, the clean credit score, the Seattle salary. Fine, I said. Send me the contracts. I told myself this was what family was supposed to do. I signed every document that week without reading the fine print closely enough. Over the next 3 months, the wedding came together, and I watched it happen from the outside looking in. Avery created a group chat called Bennett Wedding Crew. I was never added. I found out about it when she accidentally forwarded me a message meant for the chat. A photo of bridesmaid dress options with the caption, "Vote, ladies." Apparently, I was not one of the ladies. I called Avery twice to ask about the dress code, the seating arrangement, whether she wanted me to prepare a toast. The first time she said she'd get back to me. The second time, she let it go to voicemail and texted an hour later. Super busy with planning. Talk soon. I called Diane to ask if there was anything else I could help with. She said everything is handled, honey. You don't need to worry about a thing. A formal invitation never came. Not a paper invitation. Not an email invitation. But I told myself that was normal. I was the sister. You don't send your own sister an invitation. She's family. She is simply included. Then, 2 weeks before the wedding, Avery posted a photo on Instagram. Rehearsal dinner at a restaurant in Briar Creek. Avery in a white sundress surrounded by bridesmaids. Diane beaming beside her. The caption read, "My whole family. My whole world." I stared at that photo for 11 full minutes. I actually counted. I was not in it. I had not been invited to the rehearsal dinner. I almost called. I almost asked why. But I talked myself out of making the call. Maybe the rehearsal was just for the wedding party. Maybe they assumed I could not make it early. Maybe I was reading too much into it. So I set my alarm for the next morning. I had a flight to catch. I requested a full week of PTO. I only get 20 vacation days a year, and I spent 5 of them on this trip. My round-trip ticket, Seattle to Detroit, Detroit to Louisville, cost $1,400. The hotel in Briar Creek, 4 nights at the only decent place in town, $680. Avery's wedding gift, a premium knife set she'd mentioned wanting during a random video call months ago, $720. Total out of pocket before I had even set foot in Kentucky, $2,800. On the first leg of the flight, somewhere over the Atlantic, I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app. I had been working on a toast for weeks. Nothing long, maybe 2 minutes. I wanted to tell the story of how Avery used to make me play wedding with her stuffed animals when she was 5. How she'd always assign me the role of the priest, never the bride. I thought it would be funny. I thought the room would laugh. I practiced it twice with my headphones in, murmuring into my scarf so the man in 14C would not think I had lost my mind. When we landed in Detroit for the layover, I texted Diane. Just landed in Detroit. 1 more flight. Cannot wait to see everyone. For 40 minutes, nothing. Then, just before boarding the Louisville connection, all right, busy. See you tomorrow. 5 words. Not even an exclamation point. No safe travels. No, we are so excited. I stared at the text while the gate agent called my boarding group. I almost screenshot it and sent it to my friend Jenna in Seattle with the caption, "Is this weird, or am I losing it?" But I did not do it. I put my phone away, boarded the plane, and told myself everything would feel normal once I arrived. 18 hours of travel. And all I got back was 5 words. I checked into the Bluebird Motor Inn at 9:30 on a Friday night. The woman at the front desk smiled and asked if I was in town for the Bennett Parker wedding. Apparently, the whole town knew about it. I said yes. She said, "How lovely." "You must be a friend of the family," I said. Something like that. The room was small, but it was clean. I hung my dress in the closet, a deep navy dress I'd found at a boutique in Capitol Hill. I set the wrapped knife set on the desk, propped my phone against the lamp, and called Avery. It rang 4 times, then dropped to voicemail. I texted Diane. Checked in. What time should I arrive at the venue tomorrow? An hour later. Ceremony 2 p.m. That was all. No, come early. No, let's get breakfast first. No, your dad wants to see you. I sat down on the edge of the bed and looked at myself in the mirror across the room. I'd flown 18 hours. I'd spent nearly $3,000. I'd signed 41,000 inches contracts. And my mom could barely give me more than 2 words at a time. The last time I had been in Kentucky was 2 years ago for my grandmother's funeral. Diane barely spoke to me then, either. She spent the entire service whispering to Avery and greeting neighbors. At the reception afterward, someone asked Diane how many children she had. She said, "Just 1. Avery." I was standing 6 feet away holding a plate of potato salad. I ironed my dress that night as if I were preparing for a job interview, which in a way I was. I was auditioning for a role in my own family. I set the alarm for 8 and turned off the light. I could not fall asleep. The Bluebird Motor Inn had thin walls, and the couple next door was watching a game show at full volume, but it was not the noise keeping me awake. It was the arithmetic. $2,800 for this trip. $38,000 still pending on my credit card. 6 years of sending money home every time Diane called with a new crisis. The water heater, Avery's car insurance, the property tax short. I had never added all of it up. I was afraid of the total. But lying there in the dark, I did something worse. I added up the other thing. The calls that never came. The birthdays where Diane texted HBD at 11 p.m. or forgot entirely. The Christmas I tried to video call and no one picked up because they were at the Walkers' holiday party and had not mentioned it. The graduation photos on Diane's mantle. 3 of Avery, 0 of me. If I kept living like this, kept paying and showing up and pretending the silence did not sting, what would it cost me? Not just money. I would lose myself. I'd become the woman who buys her own seat at Thanksgiving and still gets placed at the kids' table. The woman who writes the checks and gets reduced to a footnote. But tonight, I chose to believe. Just one more time. Maybe tomorrow would be different. Maybe Diane was just stressed about the wedding. Maybe Avery was overwhelmed with last-minute details. Maybe when I stepped in tomorrow, my mom would hug me and say, "I am so glad you are here," maybe. I set my alarm and told myself, this is the last time I show up begging for something they have never once offered freely. Tomorrow, I'd find out whether hope was enough. I closed my eyes. Sleep came late, shallow and thin. Saturday, 1:45 inches the afternoon. Cedar Hollow Farm sat on 12 acres of rolling pasture just outside Briar Creek. White fences, fairy lights strung between the oak trees, a gravel path lined with mason jars and wildflowers leading to the entrance. It looked like something out of a bridal magazine. I parked my rental car at the far end of the lot. 30 or 40 vehicles were already there. Pickup trucks, sedans, a few luxury SUVs that practically announced Bennett money. Guests drifted toward the barn in clusters, clutching programs and adjusting hats. I smoothed the front of my dress, picked up the gift box, and walked toward the entrance. My heels sank slightly into the gravel. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass and barbecue smoke from somewhere behind the barn. I saw my dad first. Robert stood near the barn's double doors in a rented suit that did not quite sit right on his shoulders. He was shaking hands with an older man I did not recognize, probably someone from the Bennett side. When Robert looked up and saw me, his face changed. The polite smile dropped. His eyes widened, narrowed, and then dropped straight to his shoes. He did not wave. He did not come toward me. He turned and went inside. Still, I kept walking. 15 yards from the entrance. 10. 5. The double doors opened from inside and my mom stepped out. Diane wore a mother of the bride dress in champagne silk. Her hair was done. Her makeup was perfect. Her jaw was locked tight. She stopped directly in my path, hands clasped in front of her. Not open. Not welcoming. A wall. Madison. Her voice was low, controlled. "Hi, Mom." I made it. She did not hug me. She did not step aside. "What are you doing here?" "I am here for Avery's wedding, Mom. You need to leave. Right now." The words hit like a slap. I blinked. The gift box suddenly felt impossibly heavy in my hands. "What?" "I flew 18 hours. Lower your voice." Her eyes flicked to the guests passing behind me. "People are watching. Mom, I am your daughter." Diane stepped closer. Close enough for me to smell her perfume. The same Estee Lauder she'd worn my entire life. Her voice dropped to a whisper that cut deeper than screaming ever could. "Only family is allowed inside. You weren't invited." I stood there. The gravel shifted beneath my heels. A couple in their 60s walked past, glancing at us. The woman smiled politely. Diane smiled back. The second they passed, her face reset to stone. "Not invited?" I said. "I signed every contract for this wedding. I paid the deposit. This isn't about money. This is about what's appropriate." "Appropriate?" "Madison, please. Do not make a scene." Behind her, through the half-open barn door, I could see white chairs arranged in rows. Garlands of eucalyptus draped from the rafters. A string quartet warming up near the altar. Everything I'd funded with my signature. Robert appeared in the doorway. He looked at Diane, then me, then the floor. He put his hands in his pockets and said nothing. Nothing at all. From inside, a woman's voice called out, Warm, southern, and confident. Diane, who's that? Everything all right? I saw Diane's spine straighten. I saw her paste on a fresh smile before she turned halfway toward the voice. And that voice, I'd learn in about 3 seconds, belonged to Margaret Bennett, the groom's mom. The woman who'd been told my mom only had one daughter. Margaret Bennett stepped through the barn doors in a lavender dress and pearls. She was tall, silver-haired, the kind of woman who runs the church auction and the county fundraiser and still has time to arrange her own flowers. She carried herself like someone who'd never been embarrassed in public. Not once. Diane, everything all right out here? Margaret's gaze landed on me. She smiled. Open, expectant. Diane flipped on like a light switch. Her voice turned sweet as syrup. Oh, it is nothing, Margaret. Just a distant relative who mixed up the venue. Happens with these big events. A distant relative. She said it, while looking right at me. Margaret studied my face. Oh, I thought you only had one daughter, Diane. The silence lasted maybe 2 seconds. It felt like 20. Diane laughed. A bright, brittle little laugh. I do. This is a cousin from out of town. She's just confused about the schedule. Margaret nodded slowly, glanced at me one more time, then touched Diane's arm. Well, tell her the ceremony starts in 10 minutes. We should head in. Margaret went back inside. The barn doors swung softly behind her. I looked at my mom. She looked at me. In her eyes there was no guilt, no shame, no flicker of I am sorry. I had no choice, only fear. Raw, cornered animal fear. The kind that comes when a lie you've been feeding for months is about to strangle you. A cousin, I said. Madison, please. You told them you only have one daughter. It's complicated. You wouldn't understand. How long? How long have you been telling people I do not exist? She did not answer. She glanced toward the parking lot, willing me to disappear. That was when I understood. She did not forget to invite me. She erased me. And she'd been doing it for years. Every muscle in my body wanted to walk through those doors. To stand in the middle of that ceremony and say, loud enough for Margaret and Caleb and every guest in the barn to hear, I am Madison Parker. I am Diane's eldest daughter. And I paid for every flower, every plate of food, and every detail they were about to enjoy. I did not do it. I looked at the barn, the fairy lights, the garlands, the soft golden glow through the windows. I looked at my mom still standing in my path like a sentry. I looked at my dad's shadow just inside the doorway, shoulders hunched, hands still in his pockets. And I made a decision. I crouched down and set the gift box on the stone step. Gently, as if it still mattered. Keep the gift, I said. It's for Avery. Diane's shoulders dropped half an inch. Relief. She thought the problem had passed. Thank you, Madison. This is really for the do not. I held up one hand. Do not explain. Do not justify it. I heard you. I heard every single word. I turned and walked back down the gravel path. Past the mason jars. Past the couples still arriving, holding hands, laughing about the heat. Past my rental car and then to it. I opened the door, sat down, closed it. And then I cried. Not loudly. Quietly. The kind where your chest shakes but your mouth stays shut. Because even sitting alone in a parking lot, I had been trained not to make a scene. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes. Through the open windows, I heard the string quartet begin canon in D. The ceremony had begun. I started the engine and pulled out of the lot. In the rearview mirror, Cedar Hollow Farm shrank to a speck of light. I did not slam a door. I did not raise my voice once. I just left. And for the first time in my life, leaving felt like the strongest thing I had ever done. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, Madison, why did not you just say it? Right there in front of everyone? Believe me. I asked myself that the entire drive back to the hotel. But let me ask you this. If your mom looked you dead in the eye and called you a cousin in front of a stranger, what would you have done? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this story is hitting close to something real for you, hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Now let's get back to the story. I drove back to the Bluebird Motor Inn like my body was driving without me. The roads were empty. Everyone in Briar Creek was at the wedding, apparently. Inside my room, I kicked off my heels and sat on the bed. Still in my dress, mascara smeared, my hands still shaking. The toast I'd written was still open in my notes app. I closed it before I could make myself read it. Then I opened my laptop. 4 emails sat in my inbox from the past 2 weeks. Confirmations from vendors, addressed to me as the contract holder. I'd skim them when they arrived. This time, I read every word. Cedar Hollow Farm, contract holder, Madison Parker. Deposit paid, $1,200. Remaining balance, $14,800. Due within 5 business days post-event. Harvest Table Catering, contract holder, Madison Parker. Deposit paid, $900. Remaining balance, $12,600. Due within 5 business days post-event. Lily and Laurel Floral, contract holder, Madison Parker. Deposit paid, $800. Remaining balance, $6,200. Everett Photography, contract holder, Madison Parker. Deposit paid, $600. Remaining balance, $4,400. I scrolled through each one. My name, my card number, my signature, scanned and attached in PDF. Every single contract structured the same way. Deposit up front, balance due after the event. Total deposits already paid, $3,500. Gone. Total outstanding balance, $38,000. I closed the laptop, sat still. The barn was probably mid-reception by now. Toasts being made. Diane hugging Avery. Caleb spinning his bride on the dance floor. The Bennetts clinking glasses with their new in-laws. All of it happening under contracts signed by someone they'd just called a cousin. I did not make any calls that night. I did not fire off any emails. I just sat on that hotel bed and let the numbers repeat in my head. $38,000. My name. Their party. My phone rang at 9:47 that night. The caller ID read, Aunt Ruth. Ruth Miller, my mom's older sister. 62, retired school principal. The kind of woman who says exactly what she thinks and has never once apologized for it. Diane called her difficult. Everybody else called her honest. Madison, where are you? I did not see you at the wedding. I was there, Aunt Ruth. I just never got inside. What do you mean you did not make it inside? I told her all of it. The blocked entrance, the whisper, only family, the word cousin. Margaret Bennett's question. Diane's answer. Silence on the line. A long one. I could hear Ruth breathing. Slow, deliberate. The way she does when she's deciding exactly how angry to be. She told them you do not exist? Ruth's voice was flat, controlled, like a pot about to boil. She said she only has one daughter. Lord have mercy. A pause. Madison, listen to me. At the reception tonight, your mom stood up during the toast and said, and I am quoting her, our little family, Robert, myself, and our Avery. She introduced the Parkers like that. I sat there and thought it was strange. I almost said something. I wish I had. It is not your fault, Aunt Ruth. No, it is not. It is Diane's. And she's going to hear about it. Another pause, sharper now. Madison, those vendor contracts, the ones for the wedding, whose name are they under? Mine. All of them? All of them. Ruth fell silent again. When she spoke, her voice had shifted. Still angry, but with a threat of something harder underneath. Something strategic. Then you listen to me, honey. Your mama told a room full of people you do not exist. You do not owe that room 1 single cent. Sunday morning. I woke to a notification from Instagram. Avery had posted a carousel of wedding photos. 14 images. The first was the 2 of them at the altar. Avery in lace, Caleb in a charcoal suit, the barn glowing gold behind them. The second was the family portrait. Robert, Diane, Avery, Caleb, Margaret, and Thomas Bennett. 6 people. 2 families joined. 1 family short a daughter. The caption, surrounded by everyone who matters. Number Bennett forever. I read it 3 times. Then I opened my email. The venue's invoice had come in overnight. Automated and cheerful, with a little barn logo in the header. Thank you for choosing Cedar Hollow Farm. Your remaining balance of $14,800 is due by Thursday, March 6th. Below it, invoices from the caterer, the florist, the photographer, all time-stamped Saturday evening, all addressed to Madison Parker, all with 5-day deadlines. $38,000 due Thursday. I looked at the Instagram post again. Everyone who matters. Then I looked at the invoices. Something shifted inside me. Not like a snap. Not a sudden rage or a dramatic decision. It was quieter than that. More like a lock turning. Like a door that had been stuck for years finally clicking open. I was not angry. Not yet. Anger would come later. In waves. In the middle of the night. In the shower. During meetings I could not focus on. Right now, in that hotel room on a Sunday morning in Briar Creek, Kentucky, I felt something simpler. Clarity. I was the only person who paid for this wedding. I was the only person not in those photos. And I was the only person receiving invoices for a party I had been thrown out of. Something had to give. And this time, it was not going to be me. Not this time. Sunday afternoon. My phone vibrated with a voicemail from Avery. Not an actual call. She did not even try to actually speak to me. She just left a message like she was checking a task off a list. I pressed play. Hey, Madison. So, the wedding was amazing. Like, literally perfect. The barn looked incredible. And Caleb's family was so sweet. Anyway, sorry things were kind of weird yesterday. Mom said it was for the best. And honestly, I think she was right. It would have been a lot to explain. But I just wanted to say thanks for helping with the vendor stuff. Seriously, you are the best big sis. Let's catch up soon, alright? Love you. I played it twice. Sorry, things were kind of weird. Not, I am sorry Mom turned you away at the door. Not, I should have stood up for you. Not, I had no idea. I would have fought for you. Mom said it was for the best. Avery knew. She knew before the wedding. She knew Diane was going to turn me away. And she signed off on it. Maybe she had even helped plan it. And then that last line, you are the best big sis. I used to love hearing that. It made me feel valued. Like all the sacrifices meant something. But sitting in that hotel room, mascara from yesterday still faintly smudged on the pillowcase, I heard it differently. She calls me that when she needs something. Only when she needs something. I did not call her back. I did not text. I set my phone face down on the nightstand and stared at the ceiling. The invoices were due Thursday. My family had just told 120 people I did not exist. And my sister had left me a voicemail that said, "Thanks for paying. I had 4 days to decide who I was going to be now." Sunday night. Bluebird Motor Inn. The game show couple next door had checked out. The hallway was dead quiet. I sat cross-legged on the bed with my laptop open and typed into the search bar. Am I legally responsible for vendor contracts I signed for someone else's event? The answers all said the same thing. The person whose name is on the contract holds the legal obligation. But the person whose name is on the contract also holds the authority. I could authorize payment. I could refuse it. I could redirect the invoices to the party that received the services. I picked up my phone and called Cedar Hollow Farm. It rang 3 times. Cedar Hollow, this is Julie. Hi, Julie. I am Madison Parker. I am the contract holder for the Bennett Parker event this past Saturday. Oh, yes, Miss Parker. Beautiful event. What can I help you with? I need to inform you that I will not be authorizing the final payment on this contract. I was not present at the event, and I am formally requesting that the outstanding balance be redirected to the event hosts. A pause. Oh, all right. I will need to pass this to our manager, but can I ask, is there a dispute? No dispute. I am simply not authorizing the charge. The invoice should go to the Parker family in Briar Creek. Julie took my email, confirmed the request, and said someone would follow up Monday morning. I hung up and called the caterer. Same script. Same calm voice. Same result. Then the florist. Then the photographer. 4 calls, 12 minutes total. I did not yell. I did not threaten. I did not explain why. I just said one word over and over, politely and firmly, no. When I was done, I closed my laptop, brushed my teeth, and slept all the way through the night for the first time in 2 days. Monday morning. I changed my flight. Instead of staying through Wednesday like I'd planned, I booked the first available seat back to Seattle. A 6 a.m. departure through Atlanta. I packed in 10 minutes. Checked out of the Bluebird Motor Inn before dawn. The same front desk woman was on shift. She smiled and asked, "How was the wedding?" "Unforgettable," I said. The drive to Louisville took 2 hours. On the way, I passed through Briar Creek one last time. Main Street was quiet. Just the diner, the hardware store, the Baptist church where I got baptized at 12. I drove past the house I grew up in. The porch light was still on. I could picture what was happening inside. Diane at the kitchen table with coffee, still high on the reception. Robert reading the paper. The house full of leftover wedding cake and congratulations cards. My name not mentioned once. When I was 10, Diane told me, Madison, you are the big sister. You have to be strong for Avery. I had been strong for 24 years. I had been strong through Avery's childhood illness, the meningitis scare that reshaped our entire family dynamic. I had been strong through every financial crisis, every unanswered call, every holiday I spent alone in Seattle pretending the time difference was the reason, not the distance. I turned onto the highway and never looked back. 18 hours later, I landed at SeaTac. Gray sky, drizzle, the most beautiful weather I'd ever seen. I turned on my phone in the arrivals hall. No missed calls. No texts. Nobody in Briar Creek had noticed I was gone or cared enough to check. But they would notice soon. The vendors would start making calls by Tuesday. The invoices would land by Wednesday, and then my phone would ring. I knew that much. Tuesday, 3 p.m. Seattle time, 9 a.m. Kentucky. My phone rang. Mom on the screen. I let it ring 3 times. Then I answered. Madison, hi. Honey. Sweet and light, the voice she uses when she wants something. How was your flight home? Fine. Good, good. Listen, I just got the strangest call from the venue. They said you removed your payment authorization. The bill is $38,000. How do we handle this? We are not handling it, Mom. You handle it. A beat of silence. Excuse me? I removed my authorization because I am not responsible for an event I was not invited to. Madison, do not be dramatic. You know this was just a misunderstanding. We can talk about it. You told Margaret Bennett I was a distant relative. You told her you only have one daughter. That is not a misunderstanding, Mom. That was a choice. Longer silence now. I could hear her breathing change, the sweetness evaporating. After everything I have done for you, she said, this is how you repay me? You raised me. I am grateful for that. But you also stood in front of your daughter and told a stranger she does not exist. Those two things can both be true. You are blowing this out of proportion. $38,000. That is the proportion. Your dad is stressed. His blood pressure. If something happens to him, that is on you. Dad stood right there and said nothing. He made his choice too. Silence. I could hear her swallow. You said I was not family, I said. So, the family's bill is the family's responsibility. The line went dead. She hung up on me. No goodbye, no argument, just a click and silence. I set my phone on the kitchen counter and stared at it. My hands were steady. My heartbeat was normal. And the apartment was quiet, really, genuinely quiet for the first time in months. She called back 40 minutes later. Different tone this time. No honey, no sweetness. Full throttle. Do you have any idea what you've done? Yes. The venue is calling me. The caterer is calling me. I am getting invoices forwarded to my email with your name crossed out and mine written in. Do you know how humiliating that is? I imagine it is about as humiliating as being called a cousin at your own sister's wedding. That is not the same thing. You are right. Yours cost $38,000. I raised you. I fed you. I drove you to school every single day for 2 years. And now, because of one little misunderstanding, you are going to bankrupt your own family? It was not a misunderstanding. Fine. Fine, Madison. You want to play this game? I will tell everyone. I will tell the whole town what kind of daughter abandons her family over money. Go ahead. I'd rather be the daughter you badmouth than the daughter you pretend does not exist. That stopped her. I heard her pull in a breath, sharp, involuntary, like she'd walked into cold water. You do not mean that, she said, quieter now. I do. Another long pause. Then the final weapon, the one she always keeps in reserve. Your dad could have a heart attack over this. If he ends up in the hospital, that blood is on your hands. There it was, the trump card, Dad's health, the guilt grenade. She'd thrown it at me when I moved to Seattle, when I skipped Thanksgiving, when I stopped sending money without being asked. Dad's health is between him and his doctor, I said, not me and my credit card. She hung up again. This time, I did not stare at the phone. I put the kettle on and made a cup of tea. By Wednesday, Diane had activated what I called the family phone tree. Every branch and every twig. Avery called first, crying, the big, messy, theatrical kind she's perfected since childhood. Madison, please. Caleb and I just got married. We do not have $38,000. If you do not pay, we have to. We are starting our lives together, and you are ruining it. Avery, did you know Mom told the Bennetts I do not exist? A sniffle, a pause. I mean, she said it would be easier that way. With the Bennetts, you know, they are traditional, and having a daughter overseas who's not married, and easier. It was not personal, Madison. It was just simpler that way. You knew before the wedding. I did not think they'd actually turn you away. But you did not stop them. Silence. More sniffing. Then, can we please just focus on the bill? Caleb's parents are asking questions. Then maybe it is time someone gave them honest answers. She hung up on me. Robert called that afternoon. My dad almost never calls. He emails once in a while, short, factual messages about weather or football scores. Hearing his voice on the phone felt strange, like picking up an old tool you'd forgotten you owned. Madison, your mom is very upset. I know. Can you be flexible on this? For the family? Dad, did you know she told people I am not your daughter? A long exhale, the sound of a man who spent 35 years choosing the path of least resistance. That is not exactly what happened. Were you there when she called me a distant relative? Right in front of me? Nothing. Then, very quietly, a click. He hung up. Every single one of them hung up the second the questions became real. I was starting to see a pattern, and it looked a lot like a family that preferred silence to truth. Aunt Ruth did not wait for permission. She never has. Thursday morning, the same day the vendor invoices were due, Ruth picked up her phone and called Margaret Bennett directly. She got the number from the wedding program she'd kept in her purse. Classic Ruth. I was not on the call. Ruth told me about it afterward, and she did not spare details. Margaret, my name is Ruth Miller. I am Diane Parker's older sister. We met briefly at the reception. Oh yes, Ruth. Lovely to hear from you. I am calling because there is something you need to know. Diane has 2 daughters. Not 1. 2. The older one is Madison. She's 34, lives in Seattle, works in technology. She's the one who signed every vendor contract for that wedding. Every single one. And on Saturday, Diane stopped her at the door and told her to leave. Ruth said the silence on Margaret's end lasted a full 10 seconds. I beg your pardon? Margaret said. The woman Diane introduced as a distant relative, that was her firstborn daughter. Madison flew 18 hours to be there. She paid the deposit out of her own pocket. And Diane turned her away because she'd been telling your family the Parkers only had 1 child. Margaret's voice went cold. Thin. The kind of cold that comes from a woman who prides herself on knowing exactly who she's doing business with. Why would Diane do that? You'd have to ask her. But I can tell you this. That girl flew 18 hours, signed every check, and got turned away like a stranger at the door. And she still did not make a scene. That is more grace than my sister deserves. Ruth said Margaret thanked her, said she needed to make some calls, and hung up. The fuse had been lit. And Briar Creek was a very small town. I did not ask Aunt Ruth to make that call. But when she told me she had, I felt something I had not felt in a very long time. I felt seen. For the first time, someone in my family said out loud, "What happened to you was wrong. I want to ask you something." Has anyone ever been that person for you? The one who broke the silence when no one else would? Or are you still waiting? Tell me in the comments, and subscribe if you want to hear how this ends. Back to the story. Thursday afternoon, I sat at my desk in my Seattle apartment with a fresh cup of Earl Grey, and systematically closed every open account. I emailed each vendor: Cedar Hollow Farm, Harvest Table Catering, Lily and Laurel Floral, Everett Photography. The message was identical for all 4, written with the precision of someone who writes technical documentation for a living. Dear vendor name, this email serves as formal notice that I, Madison Parker, the undersigned contract holder, do not authorize any further charges to my credit card on file. I am formally requesting that all outstanding invoices be redirected to the event The Parker Family in Briar Creek, Kentucky. Please confirm receipt of this notice. Regards, Madison Parker. 4 emails. 4 confirmations within the hour. The vendors were polite, professional, and clearly not shocked. Julie from Cedar Hollow even replied, "Understood, Miss Parker. We've updated our records. I called my bank next, canceled the card linked to the contracts, ordered a replacement with a new number. $38,000 in outstanding charges would now route directly to the people who'd thrown the party. The deposits, $3,500, were gone. Paid months ago, non-refundable. I accepted it. Combined with my travel costs, the flights, the hotel, the gift, I was out $6,300. I sat with that number, $6,300. The price of learning that I was never going to be enough for them. That no amount of signing, paying, flying, or showing up would earn me a seat at a table they'd built without a chair for me. $6,300. Honestly, it felt like a bargain. I closed my laptop, rinsed my mug, and went for a walk along Elliott Bay. The river was gray. The air was sharp. And for the first time in years, I felt as if I owed nothing to anyone. Friday morning, one last thing. I opened a new email. Recipients: Diane Parker, Robert Parker, Avery Bennett. I drafted it once, deleted it. Drafted again. Too emotional. Deleted. Third attempt. Clean. Direct. No adjectives I did not need. Diane, Robert, and Avery. I have formally removed my payment authorization from all vendor contracts associated with Avery's wedding. The outstanding balance of $38,000 has been redirected to you as the event hosts. I will not be discussing this further. I wish Avery and Caleb a wonderful marriage. Going forward, please do not contact me regarding financial matters. If any of you want a relationship with me, it starts with honesty, not invoices. Madison. I read it 4 times, checked for typos, checked the tone, made sure there was nothing in it that could be called petty, vindictive, or cruel. There was not. It was a boundary. Clean as a line drawn on a map. I hit send. Then I closed the laptop, put on the kettle, and stood by the window. My apartment overlooks a small courtyard with a plane tree that drops its leaves all over the neighbor's bicycle. It is not much, but it is mine. I pay the rent. I chose the curtains. Nobody here has ever told me I do not belong. For months, maybe years, I had been carrying a weight I could not name. The constant calculation: am I doing enough? Am I giving enough? If I send more money, call more often, fly home one more time, will they finally see me? Standing in that kitchen, holding a cup of tea I made for myself in an apartment I earned with work I am proud of, I felt the weight lift. I did not write that email to hurt them. I wrote it so I would finally stop hurting myself. Aunt Ruth kept me updated. She said she tried not to enjoy it, but she's a terrible liar. Margaret Bennett called Diane the same afternoon Ruth dropped the truth. The conversation, relayed to Ruth by a mutual friend who happened to be at Margaret's house when the call was made, went about how you'd expect. You lied to us, Diane. Margaret's voice was steady, not loud. The Bennetts do not do loud. You told us you had one daughter. We welcomed your family into ours based on trust. That trust has been broken, Diane tried to explain. It was a private family matter. Madison and I have been estranged. Estranged? Ruth says your daughter signed every contract for this wedding. That is not estranged. That is exploited. Margaret told Diane that the Bennetts would not be covering the $38,000. That is between you and your vendors. We did not sign those contracts. Apparently neither did you, Caleb confronted Avery that evening. Ruth got this part from Caleb's cousin, who heard it through the Bennett grapevine, because Briar Creek has exactly one grapevine, and everyone's on it. You have a sister? Caleb said. An actual sister? And she paid for our entire wedding? And your mom kicked her out? Avery cried. It is complicated, babe. It is not complicated, Avery. It is a lie. Your family lied to my family on our wedding day. The newlyweds' first real fight happened 4 days into the marriage, over a sister the groom did not know existed, and a bill neither of them could afford. Avery and Caleb would end up taking out a personal loan for the $38,000. The Bennetts helped co-sign, not out of generosity, but because their name was on the event, and they did not want the vendors coming after them. The fairy tale wedding now came with a monthly payment. Briar Creek is the kind of town where everyone knows your business by Tuesday and has an opinion about it by Wednesday. By the following week, the story had made its way through the Baptist church, the diner on Main Street, the PTA network, and the auto dealership waiting room. The details changed a little with each retelling, the way they always do. But the core stayed the same. Diane Parker hid her eldest daughter, turned her away at the wedding, and then sent her the bill. Linda Walker, Diane's neighbor of 19 years, stopped her in the church parking lot after Sunday service. Diane, I had no idea you had 2 girls. How come I have never met your older daughter? Diane tried the script she'd been rehearsing. Madison lives overseas. We are not as close as I'd like. It is a painful subject. Linda nodded slowly. Ruth tells it a little differently. Diane stopped attending that church. She switched to the Methodist one 2 towns over, where nobody knew the Parkers by name. Robert became quieter than usual, which is saying something. He stopped going to the hardware store on Saturdays, stopped sitting on the porch in the evenings. The few people who saw him said he looked like a man carrying something he could not put down. Diane blamed Ruth, called her one morning, voice shaking. "You destroyed my family." Ruth's response, as she told me later, was brief. "I did not expose you, Diane. I just stopped covering for you." Diane hung up, added Ruth to the list of family members she was not speaking to. That list was growing, and the thing Diane had spent years building, the image of a devoted mom with a perfect little family, was crumbling. Not because anyone attacked it. It crumbled because someone finally told the truth. 2 weeks after the wedding, a text from Avery. Long, rambling. I could almost hear her crying while typing it. "Madison, I am so sorry about everything. Everything got out of control. I did not know Mom was going to say those things to the Bennetts, I swear. Caleb is furious with me. His parents barely look at me. The loan payments start next month and we are already behind on the apartment deposit. I know this is a lot to ask, but could you maybe cover part of the balance? Even half? I will pay you back. I promise. You are my sister and I love you and I just need help right now." I read it sitting at my desk during a lunch break. Read it again. Then a third time looking for something specific. An apology for turning me away. An acknowledgement that she knew and did not stop it. A single sentence that said, "What happened to you at the door was wrong. It was not there." The whole message was about Avery's problems, Caleb's anger, the loan, the apartment, the Bennett's cold shoulders. My pain was not mentioned once. It was a crisis update wearing the costume of an apology. She apologized for the mess, not for the wound. There was a difference. I typed my reply carefully. "Avery, I am sorry you are dealing with this. I really am, but I cannot help financially. The boundary I set isn't about money. It is about being treated like family, real family, not the kind that gets erased when it is inconvenient. When you are ready to talk about that instead of invoices, I am here." I hit send, put my phone in my desk drawer, went back to work. She did not respond. Not that day, not that week. I was not surprised. She had never known what to do with me when I was not her something. 1 month after the wedding, an email from Robert. My dad does not email. He calls once in a blue moon, and when he does, he talks about the weather or the Seahawks' offensive line. He has never, in my 34 years of life, written me anything longer than a birthday card. So, when I saw his name in my inbox with the subject line from Dad, I sat up in my chair. "Madison, I know I should have said something that day at the barn. I did not do it. I stood there like a fence post while your mom handled it and I did not open my mouth. I do not have a good reason. I was a coward. That is the truth. Your mom and I are working on the bill with the vendors. We do not need your money. I am writing because I wanted you to know I am sorry. I should have walked you inside. I will carry that. Dad." I read it 5 times. I read it at my desk, on the light rail home, and once more sitting on my couch with the lights off. It was not perfect. It did not fix anything. He did not confront Diane. He did not demand she apologize. He did not explain why he'd spent decades choosing peace over his own daughter. But it was honest, and it was the first honest thing anyone in my family had said to me since this started. I did not reply right away. I needed time. A week later, I wrote back. "Dad, thank you. That means more than you know. I am not ready to come home or to pretend everything is fine, but I read your email and I will keep reading it. Madison." Short, careful, leaving the door open exactly 1 inch. Not wide enough for anyone to walk through, but not locked either. He did not write back. I did not expect him to, but he'd said it and I'd heard it. 6 months have passed since that Saturday at Cedar Hollow Farm. I got promoted. Senior software engineer at the fintech company I have been with for 4 years. My boss cited leadership under pressure in the review. She did not know the half of it. I started seeing a therapist, not because of the wedding, because of the 34 years before it. We've been unpacking something she calls functional over-responsibility. The belief that if I perform well enough, sacrifice enough, carry enough, the people I love will finally see me. It was the engine behind every check I wrote, every flight I booked, Every time I said fine when what I meant was, this hurts. I video call Aunt Ruth every other Sunday. She makes coffee, I make tea, and we talk for an hour about everything and nothing. She keeps me updated on Briar Creek, not to gossip, but so I am not blindsided. Diane and Robert have paid off 12,000 of the 38. They used a chunk of their retirement savings. The rest is on the loan Avery and Caleb took out. The monthly payments are a source of tension in the Bennett Parker household. Caleb's parents are civil but distant. Margaret still has not forgiven Diane. Avery and Caleb are still married. Ruth says they are in counseling. She says Caleb's a decent man who's trying, but the foundation cracked on day one, and cracks like that do not seal easily. Diane has not called me, has not emailed, has not sent so much as a text. Ruth says she refers to the situation as Madison's tantrum. I guess that is easier than calling it what it really is. I do not hate my mom. I have spent a lot of therapy hours making sure of that. But I have stopped pretending her version of love did not hurt. It did. And pretending otherwise was killing me slowly, one signed contract at a time. I am not telling you this story so you'll hate my mom. She's flawed. She's scared. She built an image of a perfect family because the real one felt like it was not enough. And somewhere along the way, I became the piece that did not fit the frame. That is not an excuse. It is just what happened. And I think part of growing up is accepting that the people who raised you are also just people stumbling through their own fears and failures. But I am telling you this story because maybe you are living some version of it. Maybe you are the one who flies 18 hours, literally or in your own quiet way, to show up for people who will not hold the door open for you. Maybe you are the one signing the contracts, covering the costs, absorbing the silence, and calling it love because you do not know what else to call it. I did that for a long time. I called it duty. I called it family. I called it being the bigger person. And every time I wrote a check or swallowed an insult or pretended the empty chair at the table did not bother me, I lost a little piece of myself. A boundary is not punishment. It is not revenge. It is not a weapon. A boundary is the moment you say, I am worth more than this, and then you act like it. $38,000. That is what my freedom cost, and I do not regret a single penny I did not pay. If you are the one who is always paying, emotionally, financially, spiritually, for a seat at a table that was never built for you, maybe it is time to build your own table and sit at the head of it. I did not lose my family that day at Cedar Hollow Farm. I found myself, and honestly, she was worth the wait. Thank you for staying until the end of this one. It means a lot. I want to ask you, if you were me, would you have paid the $38,000 or would you have drawn the line? Drop pay or boundary in the comments. I will be reading all of them. If this story touched something real in you, tap like and subscribe. I share stories like this every week about family, about boundaries, about finding your voice when the people closest to you try to silence it. And if you want more, check the description for another story I think you'll connect with. I'll see you in the next one.